And welcome to SportsZone All Access here on this Wednesday, September the 3rd, and it is our 22nd show ever here on Kellerland Plus. A lot to talk about today, and it's mostly football. We do have a little bit of baseball in there today, which is kind of exciting, talking about the Canaries and their quest in the playoffs of the American Association. But we have a lot to talk about, and it starts with SDSU and USD. Obviously, those are the two biggest teams that we cover in this area. And, you know, one played a really tough team last week. Now it kind of shifts this week where the really tough team is the other team, and that's SDSU. And that's where we kick off our coverage today, Kelsey. SDSU set to play a ranked Montana State. I believe it is 2 versus 3 in the rankings. Montana State coming off a loss to Oregon. But SDSU has got to go to Montana State, and that's a really tough place to play, and it is certainly the game to watch in the FCS this week.
It's going to be a tough matchup regardless. I mean, we talked a lot about SDSU and how they played against Sacramento State on Saturday, yesterday, but they came out with the win. Montana State played a really tough opponent in Oregon and came out with a loss. So they automatically have a little bit more fire under them, and then to be playing at home and for SDSU to have some of the kinks that they do have to work out for this game, it'll be a good matchup.
You know, and I feel like this is going to become more of a thing with the transfer portal, that this time of year we're sitting there going, what are the kinks that these teams have to work out? Because there's new players on the team, and every year you're not. I think we're getting to a point where in the FCS you're not going to see 18 starters return from a team anymore. And so it'll be interesting. Both Montana State and SDSU will have some kinks to work out as they get ready for this really highly anticipated matchup between two teams that many people think could both win the national championship. Coach Dan Jackson talked with the media on Tuesday. This is what he had to say.
We just need to understand the value and importance of every play. You know, you make a few more plays, you can pull away. You don't make a couple of plays, you're going to find yourselves in close games. So we're just talking about the urgency and value of every play and making sure that we get some things cleaned up.
And so, yeah, talking about the urgency, the value of every play. And I think the biggest thing for that, defensively, you could say they probably did a pretty good job at that. But the red zone offense struggled, right? And I think that's where the urgency in every play matters, because one negative down in the red zone could be the reason that you get behind the sticks and don't punch it in for a touchdown and have to settle for a field goal.
Well, and Saturday was a great example of that for SDSU in the fact that Sac State had an opportunity to score a touchdown. If they had caught the ball in the end zone, that was a one-score game.
Yeah, it was.
And that completely changes the dynamic. And so in a ranked matchup that is Montana State and SDSU, you're going to need to be able to make those plays and score those touchdowns when you're right in front of it. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a pinch.
Well, and it'll be interesting. A lot of excitement around this game on Saturday night. It's a night game up at Montana State. That place is really tough to play. They fill that thing up. It is a good-sized stadium. It's a cool atmosphere, and I'm looking forward to I'll actually be on the call of another game, as will you. And so we won't get to watch it, but you know, maybe after that might be one I might have to go back on ESPN Plus or something and rewatch. It's a cool atmosphere up there, and all eyes of the FCS are upon that matchup. Now let's turn to another game that's going on, and that's USD. They're looking to bounce back after a tough loss to Iowa State, one that they were just clearly outmanned. This is a USD team that lost a lot of experience, lost a lot of talent, both the graduation and transfer portal, and then they're playing an Iowa State team that has aspirations of winning the Big 12, and if you win the Big 12, you're automatically into the playoffs. So they have the full aspiration of being a playoff team this year, and with that game, there's some things they can learn, but I really think it was just one team's a little more talented than the other. Okay, now let's turn the page and let's go beat Lamar.
It's very interesting looking at this game compared to the set of games we just talked about with SDSU, because it is quite literally just flip-flopped. And that's kind of the premise that it seems to be right now. But I think it'll be important for USD to get this win just in terms of confidence building for this group. it is a newer group. And like you said before, the transfer portal, the age of NIL and whatnot, you're going to see new guys coming into new places every year. And so it doesn't really matter too much. You have to put out the best product that you possibly can. And so for USD to be able to get a win at Lamar would be huge for just this group to establish some consistency in how they're playing.
And Travis Johansson also spoke with the media on Tuesday, and here's what he had to say as they get ready for the big game.
You see a downtick as the kind of the levels raise up. You're not, in a practice setting anymore. And with 15 guys playing their first game for the Yotes, for us, we saw too much of that on Saturday.
When you heard him say they saw just a little too much of inexperience, basically, and a lot to learn from this team, and I think they will. The offense, like I said, I was impressed by the offense. The O-line looked pretty good. They did move the ball well at times. Had trouble finishing, and that's what it is when you're playing a team of this caliber. What I'm interested to see is the defense bouncing back. They did not have much experience on that side, and it looked like it. First play of the game was a 60-some yard pass to make it 1st and goal after one play, and you went, uh-oh. This is the opposite of what you wanted to have happen. Iowa State's got such an explosive offense. The last thing you wanted to have do was have a quick start, and they did. So I'm intrigued to see how the defense bounce backs. Most importantly, come this game on Saturday with Lamar, which is obviously not knocking Lamar, but they're not as talented as Iowa State, right? Iowa State is one of the top teams in the country in the FBS. So they are playing a significantly less talented team than what they just had to face.
It goes back to Coach Johansson was talking there about defensive execution specifically,
right.
And kind of similar to what you were just saying, Grant. It goes back to really taking the basics and making sure that you're doing your job on every single drive. And so that, I think, playing Lamar, it's not quite as high a caliber of a team as
obviously
as Iowa
not.
State, right?
It's not,
right, and that's not a dog on them either.
Lamar at all. No, of course not.
But it should give USD an opportunity to really be able to focus on a snap by snap basis what exactly every individual player's job is on defense.
Yeah, and like we said, not a knock at Lamar at all. Sorry, Lamar is not a top 20 team, top 15 team now in the FBS. It's that simple. And they're not going to go win the Big 12 this year. Well, Iowa State could. They played a really good FBS opponent, and where they were, and trust me, you think USD didn't know they were going to have some problems on the defense this year?
Right.
They knew that they lost thousands of snaps, literally in the secondary. They knew that, and so they just happened to have to play their toughest team of the season that they're going to play all season long in game one, and they exposed every single one of their problems. And that's the way it is. And I fully expect USD to be better for it, as you expect a lot of these teams to do in the FCS.
And part of it is the transition, like Coach Johansson said, from practice to a game environment. And when you're going from practice in Vermilion to playing at Iowa State in their home opener for the season, that environment just quadrupled.
Yep.
And so there's going to be some transition there as well, and you expect for it to improve as the season goes on.
Well, we're going to talk high school football. The new rankings came out, and we'll talk about that and preview some baseball. Yeah, we'll talk baseball. That summer sport's still hanging around when we come back to Sports Zone All Access. And welcome back to Sports Zone Saturday. We kind of preluded where we're going to talk about, and that is right where we're headed for high school football rankings. And we're getting Kelsey more in tune with the names. It's great, right? The pronunciation's completely different in Massachusetts as they are here in South Dakota. And so we're getting her into that. And with that, her high school football knowledge come a long way in the last month. as we'll get to test some of that here in a moment and talk about some of these teams.
It's been really fun just getting to be immersed in these community environments at the games that I've been covering, and learning a lot of new vocabulary in terms of town names, which is awesome because now I feel a little bit more like a local, even though I'm not a local yet.
We're trying.
We're working.
It's been 2 months.
It's been 2 months, and I can now confidently say most of the main names correctly, which is a big step.
And then we'll switch sports and have to introduce her to a whole load of new teams. But we'll pump the brakes. Let's start with football. And let's start with 11 AAA. The newest rankings came out on Tuesday, September the 2nd. Not Monday because of the holiday. They backed it up a day. So here's 11 AAA. And interestingly enough, Lincoln routs Rapid City Stevens. And many people thought they would win that game. And that's enough to get them a couple more first-place votes. And just like that, they're the number one team. There's no tie anymore. They're the number one team. Brandon Valley, the number 2 team. And everyone knows those two have separated themselves, 1 and 2 unanimously. And then Jefferson not quite a ways behind. O'Gorman a little bit behind them. And in Harrisburg, it's kind of like 2 and 2 right now. Or Lincoln, Brandon Valley, Jefferson, O'Gorman, and then everyone else right now.
I feel like the name of the game so far this season has been just how tight the classes are, but this class is a little bit different just in the sense that we've started to see them separate, and Lincoln and Brandon Valley, since I got here, they've been the top 2 teams that have just consistently been in that discussion. That's kind of been an unspoken based off of what I've learned, but it'll be interesting to see Jefferson, O'Gorman, and Harrisburg and how they kind of duel it out the rest of the season in terms of the rankings.
Well, and this week will be interesting. You've got the President's Bowl, Lincoln and O'Gorman. A lot of excitement for that game. Harrisburg, Washington, and then Jefferson taking on Roosevelt. So, there's a good mix of games going on this weekend to see how that changes the 11 AAA standings. In 11 AA, it's pretty unanimous. Pierre has received 17 first-place votes. Yankton received just 2 first-place votes, but then they received almost every second-place vote, so they're not too far behind. And then you have T, who's 20 votes back. So it's kind of like Pierre, 15 votes later, Yankton, 20 votes back, T, and then who's going to be 4 through 8, right? Nobody really knows. But the top 3 have seemed to kind of establish themselves early in the season. Again, it is very early, and Pierre had a weird game. They won 9-6 last week in a low-scoring game that was very delayed by lightning and played late into the night. But unique score that they barely beat Aberdeen Central.
That's a unique score, and it's hard to be able to tell just how much of that was the circumstances in terms of weather. And once you're warm, it's hard to get warmed up again. Right. And so I guess we'll kind of see more this week on whether if that was a fluke and there was just a lot of circumstantial stuff going on.
Well, and Aberdeen Central, I think, is a pretty good football team
this
year.
Or if they just gave them a run for their money.
Gave them a good run. That's absolutely possible. And into 11A now, and Sioux Falls Christian, I found this interesting. They beat the snot out of West Central, and give credit to where credit's due, but Lennox played pretty well against Vermilion, and then you see Sioux Falls Christian gain more first-place votes and pull away more from Lennox, who is the unanimous number 2. It looks like Del Rapids, Madison are quite neck and neck, actually, followed by Sioux Falls Christian and with them at 1. It was interesting. It was a good season opening win for Christian, and that got them a lot of respect in the rankings.
It really did, and I mean for a team like Sioux Falls Christian, that's what you want to start the season, right? You want to kind of elevate that expectation for yourself,
right?
And really separate yourself from the rest of the class, and they did that.
By the way, you have Sioux Falls Christian takes on Rapid City Christian this week. Lennox plays Custer next Friday. Sioux Falls Christian Lennox at USF Stadium.
Well,
we're very
that
much
might give us some answers to,
and that's our game of the week.
Well, that makes sense.
I'm looking forward to that one.
That might give us some answers to some of these
it will.
1 and 2 conversations that we're having right now.
Yeah, let's circle that one. That'll be fun. In 11B, this one is just shaken up. And for me, my first place vote, the team I've been voting for first place, has still not been the number one team. Elk Point Jefferson won. Wagner literally one vote back of them. St. Thomas More, I don't know what people are sleeping on. They beat Sioux Valley and a really good Mount Vernon Blankenton team and beat both of them handily. Winner now 4, Sioux Valley 5. This is the class I think we've seen the most shaking up of any of them. And we kind of expected that when we talked preseason about how deep this class is.
For sure. And I think winner dropping, obviously they lost. And so they were going to see some sort of droppage.
Right.
And I think because this class is so tight, and normally you wouldn't expect them to drop so low to where they kind of were not totally neck and neck with Sioux Valley there at 5th, but they're closer to them than they are to St. Thomas More. And so it's a good testament to just how competitive the 11B class is.
Yeah, a lot of and there's some good games this week too. Sioux Valley's got to go to Baltic. Winner's going to Groton. Elk Point Jefferson, Mount Vernon Plankington. It's another game to keep an eye on. So some good football games to keep an eye on in 11B. In 9AA, Elkton Lake Benton is the 1, Hamlin the 2, Freeman Marion, Freeman Academy the 3. Those 3 have very much separated themselves. And I was just going to Elkton Lake Benton. They beat Viborg Hurley 43-0. Nobody expected that, but it was a statement win for the boys from Elkton, and they have garnered respect because of it, and they rightfully deserve it.
Absolutely. 43-0. Shutting out another football team is a big deal. And so, especially to be able to do that so dominantly early in the season says a lot about this team and just how much they could potentially be able to separate themselves from the rest of the class going forward.
Absolutely, and running out of time here in this segment, so let's wrap up these last 2 classes here. Wall put up 70 points last week. Yeah, they're garnering a lot of respect, and yet somebody still thinks Warner's number 1. I won't say they're wrong. Warner's definitively number 2 in my mind right now, with a really good Alcester Hudson team at 3. Alcester Hudson beat a Centerville team and a Howard team, so keep an eye on that in 9A. 9B, Sully Buttes is rolling along. I still like the depth in this class. You've got Avon and St. Mary's, and don't look now, Harriet Selby area team up north that tries to put together some runs is trying to put together another one this year. We'll see if they can keep that going. Well, we're going to talk with a youth athlete who's trying to be the athlete of the year. We'll have that story when we come back to SportsZone All Access. Welcome back to SportsZone All Access. Grant Sweeter, Kelsey Dennehy here on this Wednesday, September the 3rd. And there's a local athlete who's trying to be named Sports Illustrated Russell Wilson's Athlete of the Year. He's an 11-year-old. His story is very inspirational. And let's listen in and introduce you to Carter Guest. Carter Guest plays in the Midwest Premier Football League, which allows youth from the surrounding states to play against each other. That league has taken him to several college and NFL stadiums, including the home of his favorite team, the Minnesota Vikings' U.S. Bank Stadium.
It was like I was in a dream. It's just huge. It's just really huge. You know, I've been there, seen the players play on the field, so it was like a dream playing there. Carter has won 7 national championships in the various sports, and now he's looking to give back. Several people have helped to support him financially over the years, and Carter would like to return the favor. I had people pay for me when, I couldn't afford it. So I'm trying to give back to the community, help other people if they need help.
He wants to create that pays for youth athletes to be able to play the game and get them equipment such as cleats. We do that every year, pay for athletes, get them equipment that can't afford to do it. I'm a single dad, and that's been a cause of ours since we were young. Carter doesn't just succeed in sports, but also in the classroom. He was named Student of the Year for the 2024-25 school year. This year he's trying to do the same thing, have perfect attendance again, not be tardy or late, get straight A's. That's a goal of his, and I'm so happy that he put school first and and then sports second.
The Athlete of the Year competition features one youth athlete from each state. Carter has worked his way through the voting process to get into the final 5.
I never expected it to get this far. I never expected him to get this many votes. He's raised $3,000 so far for cancer awareness. You can purchase votes on top of placing a one-time free vote per day. You can purchase votes. $1 gets you 2 votes. So he's raised $3,000 for this, and it's just amazing to see.
That support for cancer awareness doesn't go unnoticed by Carter. He wears a pink mouthguard, socks, and cleats at every game, honoring his grandfather who died from cancer nearly 2 years ago, along with his aunt and cousin who are currently battling the illness.
Every time I go out on that field, that's all I think about is them. No, I got to dedicate all of it to them.
He's always rocked pink in everything he wears and done this long before the competition started, so it really hits home for him.
Whether Carter wins or not, he'll continue to make strides on and off the field while being a role model at just 11 years old.
I'm so proud of him as a dad, though. I have no words for it. I always look for words, and I tell him I can't find them. Just keep please doing what you're doing because you amaze me each day that passes.
Yeah, he'd amaze me too with stuff like that, and just his wanting to give back, his wanting to be a part of this. It's a cool story, and you can help him win Athlete of the Year. Go to this story on KELOLAND.com, and there's a link. You can vote. Most votes wins, and so it's a cool story. Hopefully he wins and gets a chance to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
What a wise kid for such a young age. It's so cool to be able to see him impacting the community like that. Absolutely.
Now let's talk some baseball. We said we were going to talk about the Canaries, and they're getting ready to go here. They have the Explorers tonight. It's best of 3 game series. The Explorers were the top team in the division this year, and that's who they chose to play as the Canaries. And so it's kind of interesting. The American Association top seed gets to choose which team they want to play in the playoffs. So they chose the Canaries. So best of 3 game series starts tonight, 6:35. Should be kind of fun to see a Canaries winning the most games they have since 2010 in a single season.
A little Siouxland rivalry going on.
Yeah.
Not too far away from each other. So it'll be fun. Not a long trip for either team, which makes it a little bit easier, especially to start the playoffs. But could be a good series.
It could be, and that's something you can expect tonight on KELOLAND Sports, seeing highlights of the Explorers versus the Canaries. We'll also talk the President's Bowl, which is set to be played on Saturday. And then we'll have a story with the USF, with the University of Sioux Falls, talking about how we're going to have football on Kelo Extra starting this Saturday. We'll have a story on that coming up tonight at 10. Well, thanks for tuning in to SportsZone All Access. Have a good day, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.